Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Merle Huckabee. I like to talk about real life, real people, real issues. This is Real Talk. Today, we're going to kick off our mind and body and spirit series. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Often we go to the doctor and we always look to get that physical checkup. But our mental health is equally as important. The body works as a whole. If one part is not working correctly, the whole part is affected. Mental health is a subject that was not talked a lot about when I was coming up. I don't know why. Perhaps it was a taboo. Perhaps, it wasn't discussed in your homes either. I realize now as I am older that a person very close to me was really suffering from mental illness. I watched my uncle, I probably was 8 or 9 years old, and I watched him unravel. And I was there at the beginning and the start of it. Basically, it was a relationship. He was a teenager, about 16, 17 years old, and his girlfriend broke up with him. And my uncle and I were very close. I would go everywhere with him. I'd ride on the handlebars of the bike. And one day when that happened at his girlfriend's house, and it was a long ride back home. And I remember it was a day that changed his life forever. He would resort in going to the basement, and he dropped out of high school. He didn't come up very often. He would sleep most of the time. My guess is, I'm not an expert, that he was probably suffering from depression. I don't think my grandmother really knew what to do. Because again, this is a topic and a subject that we don't talk a lot about. And it would lead to him using alcohol and marijuana to cover up, I believe, what he was feeling. Oftentimes, after witnessing him that one day going into the basement and staying down there, he would go on tirades, I would call them, and often the police would come. And this is when I heard about the place that would stick in my mind that is no longer open today, but it was called Tinley Park Mental Health Facility. You know, as I look back, and my mom and I've had conversations about this in the last several months, and she often, asked me, I wonder what made my brother go into that state of mind. And it's weird because I was able to tell her the situation as I remembered it, about him breaking up with a young lady, and she didn't know that. And I'm guessing my grandmother didn't know, but I think about how could I have advocated or told my family. Again, it wasn't something that I was aware of, that I was aware about mental health and about this was depression and why was he like this. Very close to him, but again, I was young. I wasn't able to tell anybody, what was going on with him. They just saw the outward signs of what was going on inward with him. What is mental health? The World Health Organization defines it as being the state of well-being. Mental health includes our emotional and psychological and social well-being. It affects how we make everyday decisions, how we think, how we feel, how we act. It also determines how we handle stress, how we cope, how we relate to others, and make choices each and every day. I think mental health is important in every stage of life, whether you're from the childhood, from early on to adolescence, through adulthood. it is something that impacts or affects us in one way or another. And if you and I are being honest with each other, I think all of us go through some ups and downs, and all of us at some point get down. But we manage to come back. A lot of us manage to get back up again, as I would say. There are a lot of factors that can affect mental health and behaviors, many factors that contribute to mental health issues. And I don't like to call it problems, but health challenges could be biological factors. It could be, genes, brain chemistry, life experiences, traumas, abuse, family histories of mental health issues. There are a lot of things, but what are some of the warning signs? Do we know what some of the warning signs? And as we go through this month of May, we're going to be covering this issue in more detail, but some of the warning signs could be eating or sleeping too much or too little. We could be pulling away or feel like we don't want to be bothered. Uh, not having any energy or feeling really low on energy, feeling numb or like, nothing really matters, having unexplained, some people, when they get anxiety, oh, my heart hurts. So having aches and pains, a feeling of hopelessness or helplessness. Some people, again, they use, as my uncle did, they smoke and they drink or use drugs to cover up. And sometimes this can be an unusual thing for some people. So these are some of the warning signs. People can feel confused. They can be angry, upset, worried, think of harming themselves, thoughts of suicide, and as the inability to perform everyday tasks, those are just some of it. So as we go through this series, we're going to be talking about more about what some of the symptoms are and delving a little bit more into mental health awareness. But now that you know a little more about mental health, let's talk about mind, body, and spirit. Let's talk about healing and coping mechanisms. I have a guest today, a young lady who, when I was learning more about her and reading about her, it kind of touched me. Courtney Mitchell is our guest today. She is a stretch and yoga leader for the Chicago Park District. She's a professionally trained dancer. And over the years, she's learned the importance of health and fitness. And this was something that impacted her and weighed heavily on her, due to medical reasons. But she said that she kind of thinks she had a bout of clinical depression, and it was through God. And that's so important. Through God, she was able to overcome the suffocation of clinical depression. And she started a journey of healing and healthy living. Courtney, now uses both a combination of vitamins and exercise to boost overall healthy body and everyday living. Please, won't you welcome to Real Talk, Courtney Mitchell. Courtney, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am great, Courtney. Thank you so much for taking time and joining us here on Real Talk. When I was reading your bio, I said it touched me. And I think the reason that I could connect with what was going on was because I too turned to yoga when I was not feeling well. And even after my battle with breast cancer, I turned back to yoga. And so it was something that I immediately connected with and knew as I was reading information about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I've told them a little bit, but I know there's more to share. Tell us a little bit more about you, Courtney.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on your show. This is an honor, and I'm really excited to just be able to talk. Like you said, this channel is called Real Talk, and so it's what's needed. Well, I'm Courtney. I live in Chicago. I'm 26, and I started my when it comes to my active living, I started dancing when I was pretty young. I was pretty young when I started to want to dive deeper into the dance world. And so first it started with YouTube, then it started with classes. Then I became a part of a professional company. And I danced with them for about maybe 5 years or so. And in that time, I was completely active. I was dancing with the company 3, 4 days a week. And then I play volleyball as well. So I was a very active individual. Then after that, I decided to move forward with my dance career, and I started to do more professional gigs outside of the company with friends, and we would get together, we would dance, and that became the last bit of my dance journey. And then my activity kind of slowed down a little bit. College came in the picture, and when I was in college, my activity level was basically commuting to school, walking to Columbia, and then coming home, and that was the only activity that I really got. And so that started to dwindle a little bit. And fast forward to now, I work with the Park District, and I assist in yoga and stretching. I've been teaching that for about 4 years now, and it's been a complete joy. It has been a complete joy for me personally, just interacting with everybody that comes in the park, and then a joy for my body as well. You don't realize how little you move until you start moving.
Yes,
And it
yes.
was great to just be able to be in the atmosphere, or just in the midst of people who wanting to be healthy, wanted to change their lives for the better.
So you embraced doing yoga, stretching. You embraced that after having an experience of your own. Would you like to share and tell others that may be listening to you about how it helped you, how
Sure.
dance and yoga and has helped you?
So when I was dancing and when I was being active, or as active as I was, there wasn't a time where my body was used to not moving. And so I built a routine of moving consistently throughout the week, or even just getting up and walking. So there was already a routine in my body for movement. And so as time went on, in 2013, my father passed. And so when that happened, something kind of tipped over in my mind. And I was confronted with grief and sadness. But of course, we know that death is an unwelcome stranger. We don't,
Yes,
we don't, look that way. And
yes.
so when I was greeted by such a stranger, I didn't know how to move forward with it. I didn't know how to move forward with grief. I didn't know where my train of thought should be going. In
Mhm.
my mind, I'm thinking, I'm a believer in Christ. And so I leaned on the Lord very heavily during that time. But it
Yes.
was interesting that I still wasn't feeling better. It
Mhm.
was interesting that my capability to achieve and hold on to any form of happiness and joy was very little. The clinical depression, it was a very slow burn. It wasn't a monster at first. At first, it was grief. I
Mhm.
was grieving the loss of my father. I was grieving the loss of my father's presence. And
Mm.
as time went on, the grief stayed. And it's not that I was rushing grief. It
Yeah.
wasn't that I was rushing that process. I was just concerned with the rate of the progress and how it was very slow to
Mm.
none, even.
Mm.
And then things started to click for me. I'm also a musician. I play guitar, and I hadn't picked up the guitar in some months.
Okay.
And I was confused at that. And I was also very sad at that. It got to the point where I tried to give it a go. I tried to jump back into my normal routine, which is moving around or even just walking and trying to play the guitar. But it got to the point where if I touched it, I burst into tears.
Mm. Was there a reminder for you, if you don't mind me asking? Is that something maybe that you and your dad did together? What what was the onset of this of you feeling sadness and
Right. So, as far as the guitar is concerned, my parents actually got me a guitar, a real one, when I was 8 or so.
mm-hmm.
And so that was something that, they poured into my artistry at that moment. That's what I noticed it the first time. And the guitar just meant and still means so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time of the clinical depression period, it was heartbreaking that I couldn't even touch the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand why I couldn't. I couldn't piece together the reasons why this was attacked,
Mm-hmm.
why this joy of mine specifically at that moment was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think as far as the symbolism with the guitar, I just think about the arts and how the gifts of the Lord are without repentance.
That's
And
right.
so we have these gifts and tools and talents and everything that are given to us. We didn't create them. And so for it to have been so close to me, because I do believe that the Lord granted me that gift to play, that of course it would be attacked in that time. Of course it would be used as a tool to,
Mm-hmm.
get me away from God, I felt.
Yes. How did you know that you were depressed? How did you know that? Did you know that at first? What was going on?
I had absolutely no clue. It wasn't until probably, I want to say 2 to 3 years in, that I remember the moment too. I was in my room and I was trying to do homework. I had my books in my lap. I was sitting down. My friend was on the bed, and I sat there and I was like, I cannot do my homework. I
Mm.
I cannot write this 2-page paper. And that's when it's definitely with me loving school. I love school. And
Mhm.
at that moment where I couldn't write the paper, I said, something is not right.
Mhm.
Something is not, I am not like this. I'm
Mhm.
not, I just didn't know I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. And so at that point, I scheduled an appointment with my doctor.
Okay.
Um, but prior to that, I actually did research. I actually looked up, like, what does it mean when you can't do certain things? Like, what does it mean when you don't feel like getting out of bed? Or what does it mean when you don't feel like doing the things you love? And every time I did it, depression, depression, depression just kept coming up. And I never thought that I would be someone who would experience something like this, but it was the only thing that made sense in that moment. And
Mhm.
so that's when I made the appointment with my doctor to talk to her about what it is my brain was experiencing.
Did you tell anyone? Um, you reached out to your doctor, which was a great thing to do, but did you share it with anybody, or like
I
your
think the
mom? Did you tell anyone, any friends, anybody?
Yeah, I think the first person I told was my mom. I remember us being in the car, and we were driving something, we were getting food, and I told her, I said, Mom, something is not right. I really do think I may be depressed.
Mm.
And so my mom, she's just incredible beyond words. She listened to me and she said, okay, we, where do we go from where are we going to go from here? I told her that I made an appointment with my doctor. She said, okay, that's where we'll go. And then she just understood that one, this is something very possible to happen in the brain.
Oh, yes.
And two, she understood that I'm still a human being and
Mhm.
that I experience emotions and I experience highs and lows. And at this very moment, this was very low. And she gave me the space to talk about it and to be honest about it. And that's something that's why I'm so grateful that this is a conversation.
Mhm.
The most important thing, the biggest preventative that we have is open discussion,
Yes. Yes,
to be
absolutely.
honest about what we're experiencing, because we're not it doesn't depression doesn't make you a crazy person. It doesn't make you whatever the stigmas are. What's happening in your brain is a chemical imbalance. You
Yes.
didn't choose it, you didn't ask for it.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm really grateful that my mom was so willing to allow me to move the way I needed to get the help I needed.
And that is definitely awesome, that you were able to talk to your mom, that you were able to tell someone, and you took proactive steps in helping yourself too by making the appointment, about knowing how you were feeling. Sometimes people be like, "Oh, that'll go away," or "I don't know what I'm feeling," and they don't do anything, and it
Right.
builds and builds, and it gets worse. So would you say that your journey in dancing and yoga and stretching, what the benefits? We know that movement, I know if I'm feeling bad, even physically, if I'm feeling bad, that movement and activity definitely does help. But the benefits in teaching others about this, and when you were talking about, just for a minute, when you're talking about the guitar, music is a healer for me. And that was something else when you were talking about that, and it definitely, it can be a healer. But the benefits of what you do, have you seen what it does for other people, and your mission and your drive as to why you do this?
Absolutely. It's like I said earlier, it's such a joy to teach everybody that comes in through our doors. What we hear the most is people come up to us and they tell us, my body hasn't felt this good in years. And
Wow.
so sometimes, people like they go through whatever traumas in the body and they get sent to physical therapy.
Hmm.
And we have people come in and tell us that the stretching and the yoga that we do here was more beneficial than where they were going for physical therapy.
Wow.
And to hear something that huge come from a 45-minute stretch class or a 45-minute yoga or an hour yoga is astounding, and in some ways alarming. Like,
Mhm.
what is the difference between a stretch class for a park district and physical therapy elsewhere? And I think the one of the differences is the mental space that you're in.
Mhm.
Where is your brain while you're stretching? When we teach yoga, and every yoga instructor will agree to this, that yoga isn't about how far you can stretch
Yes.
or how you can point your toe or flex your toe or whatever. It's really about you.
Yes.
And how often do we have time to just think about ourselves,
Mm.
to think about who we are as a person, to think about ourselves as the body and what our body can do, and be grateful for what our body can do?
Yes.
And when we teach yoga, we end the class with the pose shavasana, which is corpse pose. And you're just laying flat on the ground, arms out, or however, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And that is the moment, or one of the many moments, where we just stop and breathe. And that's the only thing you focus on is your breathing.
Yes.
There's no thinking about your next few tasks. There's no thinking about what you're going to do when you get home. What are you going to make for dinner? There's no knowledge of that. You're truly just absorbing the space you're in and breathing through it, breathing through whatever is happening in your body, and physically letting go of stress.
Yes.
So we hear people tell us that, they've never moved a certain way before, or they've never experienced being able to be present in the moment like this. It is, I mean, it's what we do it for, like that's what we look for.
Yes. And also, I know with me, when I'm doing yoga, I did learn from an instructor, of course, and the instructor would always say, release whatever is on your mind. You are
Mm-hmm.
in this moment, in this present time, and everything else outside of you does not matter at this moment. This
Right.
time is for you. So I really began to appreciate the time and trying to make time to do this, because you know how sometimes when you exercise or you do things, you do it and say, oh, I don't have time for that today. I began to look forward to doing this. Would
Yeah.
you say that this is the yoga, that stretching and dance, that it's peaceful, it's meditative? Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree. It's so interesting when I think about the relationship between dance and yoga and even stretching. When I think about dancing, it's interesting because I come from two different avenues. In one avenue, when I'm dancing, I'm thinking very professionally minded, where, okay, I need to be in this corner of the stage by this time. I need to get my mind, everything like that together. And even in that moment, my mind is focused on the goal, focused on I need to go here and here. And that's the professional avenue. And then I also praise dance. And so when
Oh, wow.
we're praise dancing, it is just that is the most I would say that my spirit is sometimes it's relaxed, sometimes it's on fire, but it's all of that feeling when I'm done. It's just the most centered I could feel.
Mm,
It's the most at peace that I could feel
mm,
once I'm done moving, once I'm done worshiping, once I'm done putting everything out in the space that I'm in, that I
yeah.
could step back and take a deep breath and feel peace.
Wow.
So interesting.
Mm. And I've seen the praise dancers at church, and it's like they're giving their all to God, but they're in a different space, in a different place. Um, would you mind sharing with us? You kind of told us a little bit about this, but your driving force to become an advocate for mental health awareness and wellness.
Well, the driving force in wanting to be an advocate for mental health, honestly, when I think about the times when I was experiencing clinical depression, when I was just at my absolute lowest, the
Mm,
one thing that I just needed somebody to do was to listen to me.
mm,
I just needed somebody to listen to me and not try to offer up solutions like, oh, just go take a hike, go walk for a little bit, or, just go. And I understand that, sometimes when people are giving advice, they do the best they can. It's
right.
not that they're not licensed or anything. They're not, professionals. They just know as much as they know. And so it's no one's fault for the advice that they give. However, when I was deep in the trenches, all I needed was for somebody to listen and not judge me and not say, well, you must not be that much of a Christian that you're depressed, when depression is not anyone's fault. it's no one asks to be depressed, and I feel like I went through what I went through to be here, to let people know that no, you're not crazy. What's happening in your brain, you didn't cause it, you didn't ask
Right.
for it. And there is light, there's life after that, there is real hope after. That depression is not a death sentence. It is not, you weren't put here to be depressed. You
Yeah.
were not put here to be hurt, to be alienated. That is not the will over your life. The
Yes.
will over your life is to live a life full of abundance that
Yes.
is promised to you. And my
Yes.
goal is for people to make it far enough to see that promise fulfilled.
Yes.
I want for people to know that there is trueness in this world, and depression it was not meant for your body. It was not meant for you. And I'm just nothing but wanted to be supportive.
You definitely talk a lot about faith,
Yes.
and you definitely are a believer. And we know that God is a healer. And
Right.
sometimes though, when you're down in that space, you know, people are not able to pull themselves up, no matter what
Mm-hmm.
their occupation is, no matter what their titles are. They're not able, color, race, gender, they're not able to pull themselves up. You advocated for
That's right.
yourself. You went and you sought help for yourself, and you said your mom listened to you. You are also doing something that is very, I think it's mutually beneficial, because you are giving, this is a ministry for you. You are giving people a place of healing through what it is that you're doing, through yoga, through stretching. And it is peaceful to do that. And I know that it's peaceful because I've told you, I do it all the time. But at the same time, do you ever run into people who say to you, I love what you're saying, I love, what you're showing, but it just it doesn't do something for me. I'm still finding myself in a rut. What do you say to the person, like that, who is finding themselves that, they're losing faith, they don't want to come to class, they don't want to come be a part, they don't even, sometimes people don't even want to hear what you have to say, because they're in such a place mentally and
Mm-hmm.
emotionally that they can't hear anyone. What do you say? What could you tell anyone? Or has there ever been a case where anybody has come to you and said, I've tried all these things? What would you say to that person?
That situation certainly it is difficult. And one of the difficult pieces about it is that it truly is real. It truly is real to not want to listen anymore, to not want to do anymore. And the biggest thing that I try to make sure when I'm talking to people who are experiencing that type of feeling is that they're not wrong for feeling it. They're not wrong for not wanting to go anywhere or not wanting to listen, because the truth of it is, I wouldn't be the first person to tell them X, Y, and Z. I'm sure that they're probably run into many people to tell them the same things that I may tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a frustrating walk. It really is. And so my biggest thing is relation. I let the person know that, I understand everything that you're feeling, and not to say it in a way to belittle them, but to say it in a way to make them feel like this isn't this is not out of the box. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not, this is exactly what you're feeling. This is exactly what it is, because this is what depression makes you feel like. This
Mm-hmm.
is what depression makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult, but I would try to remind that person that the depression you're experiencing is a liar. It's
Mm-hmm.
happening in you,
Yes.
but the depression that you're feeling, you are not a flake. Depression will tell you that, but you are not a flake.
Yeah.
Your body just can't handle it right now.
Mhm.
Um, so things, along those lines. But one of the biggest things is I do my best to just listen. I offer my ear and my shoulder, even. Sometimes people, even if they don't want to talk, I just offer to be in the room. I offer to be on the phone. Or, if that person is comfortable, I offer to pray for them and to cover them in the moment, because sometimes it's hard if, not sure, like, what people's walk is like, but sometimes it is hard to pray and meditate. And so sometimes you do need a little help. And, I offer to help with that. I offer to pray for them in that moment. And if all else fails and words don't help, communication doesn't help, I'll offer a hug. I mean, I know we're in the times of
Yes.
COVID, but this is, of course, prior to that. But, I would offer a hug. A hug raises your dopamine and serotonin levels. Like they trigger um chemicals in the brain to spark that type of quick happy I forgot the name of they call it happy cells, I think, but just to spark that type of reaction in the brain. Anything will help. But though that the situation of somebody just not wanting to, it can be difficult, certainly. But it anything that they're comfortable with helps.
I definitely thank you, one, for coming and sharing your story, and also allowing people to hear your story, and also I think to let people know that, one, faith. We need faith. We also need someone to listen, and we need not give up. But there are other things we can do to heal. We can do yoga, we can stretch, we can dance, we can, as your guitar, listen to music. There are many things that people can turn to in a sense of healing, because mental health awareness month, I don't think it needs to be a month. I think it needs to be a conversation that we just continue to have over and over again. I mean, because there are things on the news that we've seen. People may not think, well, I'm not, I'm not bothered by mental health. It doesn't affect me. But things that you're seeing in the newspapers, I mean, a man bit off of a couple's ear back here, I think a couple of weeks ago, and the man was, I understand, walking down the street selling something. I mean, at the helm of that is, we know that, oh my God, that's an awful thing, but something wasn't right with that gentleman. I'm not an expert, but something was not right with him. And even when people go off on mass shooting sprees, so something isn't right. At the helm of it, when we get to the bottom of it and the foundation of it. So it's wonderful to know that we have people as yourself who are offering solutions, that are offering a coping mechanism and a way of healing. Where can people find out more information about your classes? You offer vitamins. Where can people find out more information about you, or where should they reach out to you?
Okay, so well, again, I want to thank you for having me on the show. This is a pleasure, really. And as far as our classes, you can go on the chicagoparkdistrict.com, and there are many classes within the area. The area that I'm in is the South region. And so, any classes south that, are offering classes, by all means, look for stretching, look for the yogas, even look for the Zumba classes. And as far as me personally, I primarily am on Instagram. I'm starting to become a little bit more active with that because I am a photographer as well. And
Okay.
so that's where the bulk of me is right now. And so my at name is Kobiami. That's Coubami. And I'm more than willing to, I'm open to conversations, I'm open to questions, I'm open to anything really regarding mental health and regarding this segment. And as far as the vitamins that I'm taking, so I'm taking quite a few, but the most important ones that I'm taking would be the vitamin D3, and I take that consistently every day. I mentioned the vitamin D because a lot of times when it comes to clinically or clinical depression or just depression in general, there is a plunge in vitamin D where
Wow.
some people are missing out on it or they're not getting enough of it. And so, definitely, with us having been on a shutdown for so long and not being able to go outside, there's a lot of vitamin D missing. And so, the one of the practical ways to fight back mental illness or just fight back depression is to indulge in vitamin D. And of course, indulge as you see fit, and even talk to your doctors about it, and you can go from there. I do take quite a few vitamins, and a lot of them are just pertaining to me personally. By
Mhm.
all means, I would recommend doing research, looking up where you feel your body is, what you feel your body is missing. And the vitamin shop is like my best friend.
Yeah.
So I I go there quite a bit, or I just go online quite a bit, and I search around there for whatever vitamins I think are, sound good for me. And I do research on that. I'm a researcher. I do a lot of that. So
Yes.
that helps.
Courtney, would you come back and see us again?
Oh, I
Um,
would love to.
yes, and the conversation continues. I'd like you to
Yes.
come back and visit us. Maybe we might catch you in a class. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be great, to catch you in a class and, maybe show some poses. But again, to our viewers, the Chicago Park District offers classes. Courtney, people may want to just come and see you now. Is your name listed as an instructor or?
Well, it won't be listed, but I am at Ridge Park. But there are some things that are happening within the park district right now,
Hmm.
where, our building is potentially out of commission for the
Oh,
time being. But more importantly, staff may or may not be here at
okay.
Ridge. So we might be going to different parks. So honestly, we'll just have to see what the future holds, really.
Yes, yes. And we have to definitely keep up with you. And again, come back and join us, Courtney. I thank you so much for the ministry of what you're doing. I thank you so
Uh,
much, just for sharing your story today. It helps to make a difference as it relates to Mental Health Awareness Month, but in mind, body, and spirit. Thank you so much for
that's right.
joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great day here, and thank you again for coming on Real Talk. We'll look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Yes, I look forward to be back.
Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you. Viewers, I want to tell you the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1 800 273 TALK. That's 1 800 273 TLK. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you're interested in going to their website, it's www.suicidepreventionlifeline, all one.org. Before we leave you, I want to talk to our friend. We had him on our show a couple of weeks ago. I want to talk to my brother, my friend, Phil Bynum. Phil, are you with us today? Phil, are you with us? Did we lose him? Phil, while we're waiting, is my friend from and my brother from El Mirage, Arizona. And you can, watch him. He does a podcast and a shooting almost a few times a week. Phil, I'm often jealous because he comes from El Mirage and the weather is just great, and he's on his bike and keeping physically fit as he rides to the truth. I know that he's been waiting to talk to us. Phil, how you doing? Can we hear him? Can
You
you
hear me
hear him?
now?
Hey, how you
There we
doing?
go. All right. How you doing?
I just love the beret, Phil. I love the beret. I meant to tell you that the last time. I love it. How you doing, brother? How you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm always blessed. You know, regardless whether I'm doing physically bad, I'm always spiritually up.
Yes, yes. What's going on, Phil? Fill us in. What's going on? I know I haven't been keeping up much with the news too much. We got a lot going on. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so
Yes.
we've been talking about that. And I think you would agree, at the helm of a lot of things that are going on, it really goes back to that. Whether or not people want to admit it or not, it goes
Yes.
back to that. So tell us what's been going on.
Well, before I get into that, I want to, I love you. I love your previous guest. I love her spirit. You
Yes.
know, and there's something to be said about praise dancing. You know, praise dancing started back in the book of Genesis.
Mm.
And it's when Moses when God parted the Red Sea for the Israelites to escape Egypt, Miriam, the sister of Moses, took a tambourine and led the women into the dance, in celebration. So
Yes.
praise dancing has always been something not only spiritually uplifting, it's something helpful for us all.
Yes. Yes.
And you think about the mindset of the people that she was leading.
Yes.
She was leading a group of people that had endured bondage for so long.
Yes.
Now we fast forward that United States of America. Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Now I was reading on a website. I forget. Let's see. I think I actually had it up.
Phil, I'm gonna have to get one of them berets. I just can't take my eyes off this beret. I was looking at it last time, but go
this
on. I'm sorry.
this this beret was hard earned. Trust me.
I know. I know. I know.
But
You gonna educate us today. You done told us a little bit about the word.
oh
You
yeah. Well,
today.
Mental Health America did an article, and they were addressing, especially, the overall historical impact on blacks in America as far as mental health.
Mm-hmm.
See, we don't just because of our mistrust of industries and our mistrust of institutions, etc. We don't seek the help that we need to seek,
That's right.
and it endures in us more than, say, your average Joe.
Yes.
And
Phil, let me ask you a question. I don't want to cut your thought off.
Mhm.
Did you in your family, did you all talk about this? Did you hear about it coming up? About mental health? Was there any discussion about it?
in my family, no. In one of my relationships, yes.
Okay. As you got older?
Yes. My son's mother,
Yes.
she suffers from a mental condition.
Okay.
It used to be called multiple
Personalities, dealing with multiple personalities.
personality. Now they call it dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
Now, I was with her for over a decade,
Mm.
and I met, probably in the Southeast United States, some of the top psychiatrists, in that area,
Mhm.
just to help her through, help her deal with what she dealt with on a daily basis. And it was hard. Some of the things you see, some of the things you hear, some of the things that you witness, and and I'm just talking about my perspective,
Mhm.
not from her, because I can't. You can't jump in somebody's mind and see how they feel. All you can do is bear witness to what to what you think they're feeling.
How did you know it was a mental illness? Was it something that you
We
discovered?
had indications because her personality was changed,
Wow.
you know, on different occasions, et cetera. And it wound up at the time when we broke apart, she had 22 different distinct personalities.
Oh, wow.
And one of the psychiatrists thanked me for, because I did a character assessment of each individual personality that I witnessed, all 22 of them. And you see, at that time, nobody had done the work, had done something like that. And the psychiatrist was like, well, we should have, why didn't nobody, I'm not a psychiatrist.
Right.
The thing I wrote was something that I observed and how I felt, how that was. But some of the, we also have to look at the professionals in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how are you reaching out to people with mental illness? How are you reaching out and saying this is important?
Mm-hmm.
See, it's not just a one-way street, especially when you talk about Black people not trusting these institutions. It's also the institutions not reaching out to us. Why? Because we don't have an insurance. Why? Because, the stereotypes of yesteryear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about, you asked me at the beginning, what's going on? Well, what's going on is you got an America divided. You have an entire political system that they don't know which way is up. Then you got the Democrats. We're trying to get things done, but we're not doing it with enough force. We're worrying about, okay, we want to be bipartisan. Well, we ain't been bipartisan for 15 years.
You're right about that.
You know me, Merle. I'm gonna tell you like it is.
Hey, I know you are. I know you. That's why I love you, Phil.
I gotta say, we have been divided. Literally, if you think about it, this increase of division has started in America since 2000, in the election of George W. Bush. You saw the rise of the Tea Party. You saw all this other stuff going on. Yes, we had racism, of course. We had separatism, we had prejudgment, we had all this, but we didn't have it in such on a leadership scale that we have it now.
Yes.
Now, isolate the Black community in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we thinking? We don't know where, we don't know if we can walk down the street and survive the next day.
Right.
Let alone have a everyday problem with bills.
Yes.
Without feeling some kind of depressive state. We have all, and it don't matter what your color is. At one point or another, everybody has been depressed.
Yes.
Now, what we choose to do about that, or what somebody close to us tries to help us with, that's where the key is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the key is. You got congressmen attacking other congressmen in Congress.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Ocasio Cortez, she might wind up showing Green where she's from in a minute. I'm just saying.
Oh, Phil.
You can only hold in so much for so long before
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens was dormant for 100 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she blew.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
But it's crazy what's going on. You saw my post earlier today, and I was talking about Isaiah Brown in Virginia.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything about that young man's health since April 26th.
Mm-hmm.
So Is the media helping our problem? Is the media helping? And when I say our problem, I'm not talking, people need to understand. I'm not talking about just the Black American problem, because the Black American problem is an American problem.
Right.
You know, it's how our institutions of justice, finance, education affect us all.
Right.
Because if you can isolate and downplay one group because of the way they look, think about those people that aren't black or brown,
Right.
that don't have the advantages, you know, of rich people, because they're in the same boat.
Yeah.
But they let the people over them think that they have more, because why? Because they look a shade lighter. It's crazy. And when America gets to the understanding that united we stand, they will understand the power that we have. When you release somebody's mental capacity to do their best. One of the subjects I talked about earlier this week was jobs and people staying on unemployment because of this, you know, these incentives the government's giving them right now.
Yes.
Well, if you're gonna pay me $7.25 an hour, I'm bringing home about $250 a month, and the government gonna pay me $600 a week.
Right.
I'm staying home.
I know. I'm
staying home.
I can't find any. I have an aunt who helps me with my mom on Fridays so I can shoot the show. And she helps me on most Thursdays. But I have reached out to try to find help for her. And that is what the agency has said. They have said that due to COVID, a lot of people quit. The other part is people are receiving more on unemployment, so they're staying home. And so, I mean, across the industries, they're having.
So you just hammered on a major point. You say the people are choosing to stay home because they're making more.
Yeah, on unemployment.
Now, what is Joe Biden trying to do?
He's trying to do a number of things.
Infrastructure just ain't roads and bridges.
Right.
Infrastructure is the mind. It's the education of our youth. It's putting people to be their best they can be.
It is.
You know, in one of my broadcasts, I said I'm a mercenary. I am. You pay me $2 more an hour, I'm gone. You know, it's about, you know, hey, it is what it is. I got bills like everybody else.
I know you're gonna keep it real. But at the same time, you go out there nationwide and tell people, well, we can give you a job for $7.25 an hour. You don't want to do what Franklin Delano Roosevelt said to do. See, in 1942, under the Fair Standards of Labor Act, Franklin Delano Roosevelt set the rate for employment at 25 cents an hour. Wow.
Now, it was supposed to rise along with the cost of living. 8 years ago, had we kept up that standard, minimum wage would be $20 an hour or somewhere thereabouts. People can make a living. People can afford a therapist. People can afford a doctor. People can afford a house.
Right.
You know, there are basic needs that if we're lacking, that's a direct attack on our persona.
Yes.
Our mental health. See, if your mental health ain't right, then it weighs down on your spiritual health. But when you got them two against you, your physical health starts going. See,
it's a total overall comprehensive picture.
It's you see, my health teacher at North Carolina A&T State University taught us that mind, body, and soul. Yeah. That trilogy, and the needs of those trilogies are met. You have a happy person, somebody who can give you 100% productivity. Somebody's going to always do the right thing, etc. If any one of those three or two of them or all three of them are not met, that's where you run into a mental train wreck. That's where you run into it.
Absolutely.
And this is something that the United States needs to understand. We need to understand that when you pay people optimally, you will get optimum productivity.
Yes.
You pay me $7.25 an hour,
Yeah.
you're gonna get $7.25 an hour productivity.
That's right.
You know, keeping it real.
You
Keeping it real.
You are.
You know, and trust me, there's been jobs. See, when I started working, minimum wage $3.35 an hour. That was back in the 80s. I was a teenager. But now it's $7.25 an hour, but buy a house for $7.25 an hour.
You can't, man.
Renting an apartment. You come out here to El Mirage talking about $7.25 an hour for an apartment. They will not approve you.
Phil, stop. I want you to stop.
I can't.
You heard us now. You're right about that. You heard us now. You can't cut up too much now, Phil. I know where this is going, but I hate
No. I'm going to keep it FCC compliant.
I know where it's going, but you're right. You're right. And my technical producer just showed me something that I did see in the news the other day. You know, McDonald's is taking up their minimum wage to $15 an hour now.
Not enough.
Right. Not enough, but they claim that not the franchisees. I think this is more of the corporate-owned McDonald's, if I understood that correctly.
Right.
So, you know, we have some corporations that are kind of moving with the times, but it's not nearly enough.
Right.
You know, as you say, and as we already know, because housing, you know, cost of living, just man, the price of gas right now. I mean, are you looking at it? I mean, that's
not affecting folks on my side.
Oh, really?
We ain't paying $6 an hour. We pay, it's been $3.09 for a minute.
Oh, okay. And it ain't got to you yet.
Not yet.
Okay, because I'm gonna tell you, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's what I was thinking at first. But these gas prices, they are rising.
Mm-hmm.
So in a minute, we're gonna need our bikes. I'm gonna get on the bike enjoying you. In a minute, we can't go to the Middle East and get a camel. I see that bike back there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that bike back there. I got mine too, and it's a beautiful day here in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna need a camel in a minute, but the Middle East is in crisis. They're in war. They fighting over there. You know,
we don't know what kind of stance we want to take in Israel. But I tell you what, legally we are responsible for the defense of Israel. But just like your child, do you prop up your child when they do wrong?
I don't.
You try to correct.
Even being grown, I tell them when they're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's
crazy, but that's just me. I mean, you got some people who will now. You got some parents, no matter what their kid do, they'll get on the news and say, "Oh, he was a good kid,
mm-hmm.
great kid," knowing darn well
we didn't teach him like that.
That's right. That's right.
Where he learned it.
It's you know how babies, they come into the world and they're taught.
Oh yeah.
Racism. It's taught.
Oh yeah. Hate is not a hereditary trait.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
You're right. Absolutely. Phil, what you think about before we go? What do you this Liz Cheney thing? Man, that's what you got to say about that, Phil. I know you got something to say about the Liz Cheney.
It's not too many. Yeah, I'm a registered Democrat. Always been my life. This is that. Very little respect for too many people in the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. That goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
Since John McCain, I have not respected any Republican more in my life.
Yeah.
What she said a couple days ago
Mm-hmm.
in empty session of Congress, we might want to say,
Uh-huh.
if she were running for president, I might have had my vote swayed
Mm-hmm.
because it was a reminder. It was
Mm-hmm.
a wake up call to who we are, what
Yes.
public service means. Public service don't mean you're going in and fill your coffers. Yeah,
That's right.
like we just witnessed for 4 years.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
was a mental health crisis too.
it's still it's
Seen
an
it thrive.
ongoing mental health.
That was
Yeah, it's
we
on.
didn't want to
That's
own that piece, but it was some mental health issues going on. But
well,
okay, I didn't say that. Go on.
there's also 74 million cases of mental health going on too.
Yeah.
You know, because anybody could follow something like that. You know, check just check it. But she reminded me of the lessons of government that I learned. You know, the ideal of what serving public service is.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to be reminded of that. And I'm not talking about just Republicans on both sides of the aisle. It is to make better life for your constituents.
Right.
It is to follow ideas that exemplify the moral compass that the United States has historically beat the heads of the world with, that we are the moral police. How can you preach moral morality if you are acting immoral?
That's right.
And when she brought up, the way she laid it, looked like a Perry Mason movie, quite honestly. She laid a case out so smoothly. She started out with these episodes of atrocities. The thing in Kenya where there's people were voting and they were under attack and came back and came back after being attacked. Said we won't give up. The thing about the dissident in Russia where he spoke out against Putin and wound up dead, like we're still about to have maybe happen pretty soon. You know, and then the people of Cuba that were there.
Yeah.
And she said, if we don't turn the page of hate that we're on, that could be us.
That's right.
And we ain't far from it.
Yeah.
We're not as far from it as people. Yeah, I don't say that to scare folks, but it's the truth. Because once you don't check despicable acts of violence
right
against one group, then how can you say that you are a United States?
That's right. Absolutely.
You know, but yeah, I have the utmost respect for what she said, how she delivered it. You know what? You can tell she meant it.
Oh, I know. She was very sincere. Very
You
sincere.
could really tell. Now, I'll tell you what, I read something the other day too, that 100 plus Republicans are talking about splitting that party in half. Because they don't want to follow the lies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to follow the immorality. They don't want to follow the, how is it put, the visit by peaceful patriots on January 6th.
Yep.
You know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know, Phil. It is. We got to go. We got to go, Phil. I got to let you go because, you know, we could be talking all day. You know, Facebook will cut us off, you know,
well, you know,
of our discussion. But I want to thank you, my brother, for joining us. I hope you'll come back and join us next week. We're going to continue our series on mind, body, and spirit, and continue in the vein of mental health awareness. Next week, we're going to have a guest on. She's actually a licensed social worker.
Oh, that's good.
And she works for the University of Chicago. And she's going to come on and talk to us. She has adolescent clients and young adult, and I think it'll be good to hear a word from her. So we're going to continue our talks on mental health awareness and, protecting our mind, our body, and our spirit. I'd like to thank you for coming on. And again, my brother Phil Bynum in El Mirage, Arizona, you can check him out. Phil is always riding to the truth on his bike. I'm gonna get my bike and ride with you, my brother.
Come on,
And,
right.
You always keep your ear to the ground. And Phil, what do you say? Come on, tell me what you say. Tell the people what you say as you close us out.
Okay, well, y'all know me. I'll tell it to the hot. I'll tell it to the cold. I'm going to tell it to the young, and I'll tell it to the old. Don't want no laughing, no crying. Most of all, no signifying. Those words by the late, great Petey Green. Y'all be well, God's love.
Thank you, Phil. God bless you, and we'll see you next week. I want to, before I go, thank my other guests, Courtney Mitchell, a dynamic young lady who is healing. Her ministry is healing through yoga, stretching, and dance. I want to thank my technical producer, Anthony Greer. We don't do this broadcast through a phone. We actually have cameras and lights and microphones here, and I couldn't do it without him because I'm totally lost when it comes to all of this. I also want to thank my producer, Tanya Thomas. You guys, I couldn't do this without you, and we want to thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. We'll see you next week. Join us as we continue our mind, body, and spirit series on mental health awareness. I'm Merle Huckabee, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.